Good afternoon, everyone. Join me on Thursday night, February 1st, my own radio program, Studio A on Revolution Radio, where I'm going to bring together Christian from Ice Age Farmer and Diamond from the Oppenheimer Ranch Project. We're going to spend a full 2 hours talking about what to expect with the amplification of the Grand Solar Minimum, how to prepare, and what some of the solutions are. And at the same time, looking at Christian's station, he has a video right now talking about why the world's governments are covering up food shortages. So we're chasing this from two different angles on the Business Insider article here. Whole Foods, nationwide phenomenon with these ordering system that they have. Vegetable prices surging in Japan, veggies up in Malaysia, veggies up in India. High prices from Spanish vegetables into Germany. A look at the supply chain globally. And I was wondering what had happened with those massive 120, 130 mile per hour winds that were ripping container ports apart. So I found this article, Difficult Sprout Season, and I called Andre from Nordhook Agro to get some answers. Wow, what an amazing conversation we had. It's all about the EU not approving different chemicals to stop a thrips infestation. This is what the veggies are looking like. And if there's such an abundance of kale in the US, why are the prices up? Mauritius, that's understandable after a cyclone decimates the island, that you need imports. And we are just at the beginning of 2018 for the amplification of our weather. Look how much further we need to go, and let's really delve into why these food shortages are being masked and how many of them are going on at the moment. And while you're watching the video, please remember to subscribe to Adapt 2030 and click that bell so you can get the latest updates. Now, Christian over at Ice Age Farmer also has another video right now talking about global food shortages and why the media is trying to hide all this. So I chased down an entirely different spectrum of stories that are out there as well. Business Insider here, Whole Foods employees revealing why there's shortages, and it's a nationwide event happening. When you come in, there's empty shelves. It's everywhere from Boston. That includes meats as well, not just vegetables. New York City. Okay, those are regional. But now it's over in San Francisco, Chicago. Nationwide, for sure. They're trying to bring this new system called order to shelf, meaning they're bypassing any stock room. It's going straight from the truck onto the shelf, literally. So what do they know about food in the future that they're trying to get everything regionally, and that short of a shelf life, bring it in and put it right for sale? So one interesting thing here, as the employees started to speak out, the noticing that this new software is purposely letting some things go out of stock. Now this goes right into it. If we're starting to have some sort of regional shortages or deficits in food, they're going to start to put things out of stock, or they're going to take those same shelves and fill a full shelf with something that before would have had 2 or 3 items on it. So please check your local supermarkets to see what's going on with this. But it seems to be a concerted effort to put things out of stock on purpose, and maybe it's just to gauge your response and see what will happen. Over in Christian's video also has this image here, which I also wanted to pick up, talking about veggies across Europe, not just the UK. I'm wondering why they only focused on the UK when there's so many things happening all the way from Spain up to the Netherlands, but they're just focusing on the UK. Awesome. But they say there's going to be shortages and trouble until April. But the inflation by category, pretty low comparatively when you're looking at 100% losses, 70% losses, infestations in the fields by insects. So I was thinking, all right, if there's an enormous amount of greenhouses where food needs to be grown, what happened to all those greenhouses in the Netherlands when these massive, massive windstorms came through at 130, 140 miles per hour last week? Gigantic waves all the way from the coast of Portugal. People getting knocked off their feet in the Netherlands as well. Container shipping ports. Winds so heavy that they're blowing containers off the stacks. And now Germany, also substantial price increases for Spanish imported vegetables. So I'm thinking, all right. And you look at the Netherlands as a huge agricultural exporter. So I was curious what the damage was and if there's any effect knock on. So looking regionally, just in the EU, the vegetable trade, you can see an enormous amount comes from Spain, and there's also smaller suppliers within those red arrows. Now taking a look at the regional area here of the EU, you can see Netherlands has one of the biggest export amounts going out of any country, mainly supplying Germany, but look at Spain, all those blue arrows where they take their produce to. So any effect in either of these countries is going to have a huge knock-on effect for the economy and others as you pay for higher priced food. So looking through Fresh Plaza, I found this difficult sprout season. No, not the sprouts that you get when you're seeding and getting the first 7 days so you can eat those sprouts on your salad. We're talking about Brussels sprouts. And I thought, well, those are a pretty hardy plant. Aren't they a field plant? So I ended up contacting Andre from Nordhook Agro. We spoke for about 25 minutes on what's going on over there. I got a first-hand account of what happened after that windstorm went through, along with the infestation of the thrips. So let's start with that. This is a type of insect called the thrip. Now, in other countries in the EU, they already have chemicals to stop this infestation, but so far the paperwork and regulation has not allowed this to move over into the Netherlands. So they're having an enormous difficulty with the insects. Now, when the insects get in and eat the leaves, of course, they leave holes and scabs around in the plant. Not too good for marketing on that. Now, these are aphids in infestation. He was saying over in the organic growers, they're getting aphids, but where the chemicals are, these thrips have become literally immune to it, so they need a stronger variety, but it's just not happening yet. So looking inside the Brussels sprouts here, those are no longer for sale. When we talked about the weather a little bit, he was saying that the average rains have increased and now you're getting gargantuan rains coming at one time versus spread out over longer duration. This matches up with the grand solar minimum, what you would see in the 1640s and 1650s. Now, he was explaining that the thrips originally are in the onion crop. And if they grow to maturity in there, then they get wings and then they fly looking for other crops. There's a way to mitigate them, but they so far have taken hold in the Brussels sprouts at the moment. But the EU is unbending in getting these new chemicals over into the Netherlands. It's such an easy thing to do. And again, I'm asking the question, why hold out part of the EU when they've already passed regulation to allow another part of the EU to use the exact same chemicals for these exact same pests? It's almost like they split a testing line down the middle or parts of the EU to see what would happen. Anyway, there's an enormous amount of wastage going on. For example, Belgium right next door has access to the chemical, but they do not. Also, some greenhouses were damaged during the windstorm, absolutely. What had happened is growers turned off the water in the greenhouses, and he was talking about tomato plantings. They had 7 hectares of 2-week-old tomatoes, and all the water got turned off. So people are replanting. There's going to be losses to the greenhouse industry there. The actual damage to breakage of glass was not that high, although roofs were ripped off and there was some damage to areas of greenhouses. But most of those exports that are going to Germany and the UK, more expensive food, just like the losses from Spain going to cause more expensive food. Places like the UK that only rely on 2 exporting nations, they're going to get double pinched because both of the supply sources are going up in price. And I do want to thank Andre for taking the time. Such a gentleman and very knowledgeable. These are the kind of farmers and people you want in your community. They know about the conditions. They know how to solve the problems. And he's also a supplier for local farmers within the area there. And these farmers in the areas where you live are the ones who know most about how the weather's changing. You should start a conversation with them. So talking about, one of the main destinations for the Netherlands produce is going to be Germany. Interesting also, potato yield per hectare, the highest in 26 years, but the amount of hectares was completely cut down to the lowest since 1991. And also, why are they talking about 2016 harvests? Where's the 2017 harvest numbers? That baffles me that we have a 2018 article that just skipped over 2017 somehow, saying, whoa, it's the highest on record, but the amount really coming out is really small because, the amount that they planted is very small in hectares. And as always, I've linked everything below in the description box, and then sifting through the articles, I came up with this really good map here of global distribution of foodstuffs, specifically produce, vegetables, fruits, across our planet. How does it move? A bit closer in here with all the statistical graphs. The PDF link below is super high res, so you can blow that thing up. It's like 4,000 by 4,000. You can really get good detail in there. But you notice in the United States, almost everything's coming from Mexico. What happened in Mexico, you might ask, so far these last 2 or 3 weeks? Hail, wind, record cold, snow, and damaged crops in Mexico too coming up to the United States. And then looking over into Asia, where the suppliers supplying into Japan. Japan vegetable prices surging as well. They've had an enormous amount of record snows, typhoons. They had a late season typhoon that came over in December. A lot of difficulties there with their plantings and harvests as well. Malaysia, I did a report on Malaysia a few weeks ago where the fish prices have tripled. And now we got vegetable prices going up as Malaysia. India, sharp rise in vegetable prices and inflation. They're having a huge drought. Apples are decimated this year. Himachal Pradesh, the apple harvest, I did a video on that just last week about the grand solar minimum repeating cycle in the Himalayan mountain causing drought every grand solar minimum and small temperature drops. Speaking of which, in China, snowfall affecting pepper prices. They're still looking at the damage of the collapsed greenhouses to today due to massive snows where they usually don't get that heavy of a snow. Okay, now Mauritius, they just experienced a cyclone. You can understand that because of those heavy rainfalls of vegetable production across the island, they're going to need imports. That makes sense. But what doesn't make sense is U.S. kale supplies are healthy, above average, normal, glut of stuff. But why are the prices up? When we look at the wheat futures going out, everybody says wheat is the lowest it's ever been. You know what? I'm going to say that wheat is of such poor quality they can't even sell it for animal food. They're trying to dump it on the market to get anything they can at the moment. What's going on with our crops, with the grains that's starting to manifest as well? All right, this is going out to July 2020 contract delivery. Rise, obviously, but they're not talking about the protein content. You need to look at the durum wheat and see all the premiums on that. There is a glut, but it's terrible wheat. I wouldn't want to eat it. And as we look at the solar activity, these next solar cycles are going to be even lower, and it's going to bring us back into modern minimum type conditions. This will also include increased volcanism. You've seen an enormous amount of volcanoes going off across the planet. Diamond does daily volcanism updates. Huge amount of volcanoes going off, and this all has to do with galactic cosmic rays, cloud cover, albedo, all this feedback loop that we get every grand solar minimum. Now with the amplification and prediction here on Valentina Zarkova's work overlaid with what I put the dots and the lines there so we can get a gauge of the amplification, we are in the first month of 2018. All that change that you saw from 2017 to 18 is going to increase 4 times from last year. So the amount of droughts, the amount of mega floods, the amount of extreme weather, hailstorms that's 3 feet deep, snowstorms that dump 20 feet like we're starting to see across Italy. They got 23 feet of snow in like a week and a half. That is incredible. So this is the amplification timeline here, and when we step out of 2019 to 20, it's going to amplify further from even these extremes into the double, triple extreme. Hopefully somewhere around 2021 we'll stabilize for a little while. But by that time, there are absolutely not going to be enough farmers to supply all the world's mouths, period. This is why I started my channel. We need to start talking about solutions. Which brings me back to mini Ice Age conversations on Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, inviting you to our 3-way discussion here on my new time slot on the radio program, Mini Ice Age Conversations, every Thursday night, 10 p.m. to midnight. I'll have with me Diamond from Oppenheimer Ranch Project and Christian from Ice Age Farmer. That's what we're focusing on, the solutions. Hope you can join us. Thanks for watching. Hope you got something out of the video. The media is definitely covering up this beginning of the shortages.